And I'm delighted to say we have got some of the finest people of moving things, moving people right around the world to talk to us here. Gavan Egan is the Chief Revenue Officer of SmartTech 24/7. He is going to moderate this panel, and he is joined by Dr. Kate Jones, the CIO of Stagecoach, Paul Midian, who is the CIO of easyJet, Brian Cooke is the CISO of PTSB, and Karim Hernandez is Senior Lead Information Security and Data Protection with AXA and Laya Healthcare. Lads, round of applause for our penultimate panel. Thank you. Off you go.
Thank you, sir. Ooh, that's bright. All right, folks. So listen, thanks all for sticking around and chatting to us here. So leadership, cybersecurity leadership in 2026. We're going to talk about resilience, communication, and strategy. And I'm delighted to be joined by 4 people here today. So maybe we'll just start with a quick introduction. Kate.
Yeah, hello, I'm Dr. Kate Jones. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Stagecoach, and I'm also a non-executive on a social housing board.
Hi, I'm Paul Midian. I'm Chief Information Security Officer. I'm not the CIO, neither would I pretend to be. So.
Hi, folks. I'm Brian Cooke. I'm the CISO at PTSB.
Hello, everybody. Karim Hernandez, Information Security Senior Lead for Laya Healthcare, part of AXA Group.
Thank you, folks. So attending the event today, we've about 500 security leaders, and you all spend your day trying to keep your organization secure in the face of a threat and complexity that is just escalating, and we've been talking about it all here today. On top of that, Gartner tells us that when they talk to you, that 3/4 of you believe you do not have sufficient influence with your board to really kind of make things happen. So, and then also, when I'm out talking to you guys and the broader CISO community, I definitely see that, and I'm hearing is that it's just not enough for as a CISO to understand the threat and the technology. You've got to be able to mobilize a board. You've got to be able to communicate effectively with regulators, and you've got to squeeze more funding out of your CFOs. In the panel here today, we have transport, aviation, finance, and insurance. 4 industries that are highly targeted, highly regulated, but are critical to everyday life in our society. So really great group to really have a conversation with about how we kind of mobilize around this. So we're going to kick off with a quick fire question, right? And we start with you, Kate. So how has the life of the CISO changed in the last couple of years?
I think in some ways it hasn't changed at all, but in other ways I think the pace at which we see exploits appear has rapidly increased, which means they have to be really highly focused every day on what's going on.
Okay. Paul?
I'm going to say very similar. The pace has increased. The fundamentals of the job, protecting a business from cyber attacks, have not changed. I would suggest also that perhaps boards are better educated now than they were 5-6 years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, Paul. I think from my own point of view, I'd say probably the CISO role has changed in a few different ways. One, it's expanded. So one of the reasons why it's expanded, and it won't take much to convince this audience that the threat has become much more sophisticated and has evolved. And I think for that reason, CISOs are driving better awareness and better, at an enterprise level, better capability, and that means that the role itself is elevated. But it's also elevated because of the regulation which has come our way. And you just have to pick up the newspaper or read the news to see almost on a daily basis there's new attacks and new incidents occurring. So that, I think, has just elevated the expectation on the CISO. The other point that I'd make is that it's probably become much more important, as you say, Gavin, to influence at an organizational level. So that means getting the budget, getting people match fit in terms of investing in the right areas. And I think it's relentless then from a regulatory perspective. The onus is on the CISO and their teams to continually evidence what they're doing.
Yeah, and Karim?
Yeah, so I agree with all the panel here, but I also want to add that the mindset from the resilience standpoint, cyber resilience, have increased because now we're having no assume only that they protect only. It's also assumed that the hacker is how do you survive? How do you keep operation? How do you keep your critical, important business operations and services when you have to continue operations and then you have to keep going. So that mentality, how you manage the risk, how you bring to the board your risk and measure those risks.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, folks. So maybe just continuing the conversation, Kate. Communicating with the board. From your experience, when trying to talk about cybersecurity and resilience, what are the effective communication strategies that you've seen working?
So to be controversial, boards don't really care about cybersecurity. They care about risk, they care about cost, and they care about revenue. And when you're talking to the board, cybersecurity is a big risk for them. It's a risk amongst many other risks that they're considering. They see cybersecurity as a cost. It is a significant cost to keep yourself protected. And they also see it as a big, big risk around revenue generation, revenue collection, and loss of revenue. And so when you're talking to the board, if you can put yourself into their mindset and explain what cybersecurity is about in the context of not just being a cost centre, but it is a way of protecting revenue and making sure that revenue comes in that's not lost. And also it's protecting the reputation of the company, which is pretty much number one on many major boards' agendas, because if you lose your reputation, you can lose your place in the market and you can find yourself quite quickly in administration and closing down. So being and putting yourself forward to the board in a way which connects with them and their agenda is really, really important. So if you can think about those things and avoid some of the very technical views. I mean, today I love technical stuff and I like being that bridge between the board and the technical details. But just remember that most board members really have no clue other than the fact that they're using MFA when they log into their Microsoft account and they find it really annoying. So yeah, try to talk in their language and you'll get their support.
Well, thank you. Anything you want to add, folks?
Yeah, adding to that, definitely what it doesn't work is putting the metrics, the numbers, using acronyms that they don't understand. You are talking about business language. You're talking about what is the interest for the business, enabling the business. Keep in mind that we are enablers. Security is there to protect and also to enable the business. How you can add value, how you minimize those risks, reputational, financial, operational risks, that at the end, if you have a breach, everything will be impacted. If no customer focus, no business. Is that the reality? The customer is always at the center and put it at the front of all your presentations, your metrics. That's okay to do estimations. They will like to see estimations of, for example, you ask for money, you put numbers, but you focus always in the inherit, the residual risk, your risk tolerance. That's very important because they focus about the risk, but they're going to give you the money if you have all the facts at the front.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think avoiding jargon is really a good idea. If you use too much jargon, you're just going to annoy them. So just be careful on that. I think just to add to it though, really I would ask for feedback. So as CISOs and security leaders, we're regularly reporting and updating board. I regularly ask for feedback. What kind of metrics, what kind of information do they need to see? Is there anything we can do better? And then, of course, share with them what's worrying you.
Okay.
And be open, but you also have to be prepared to say what you're doing about it. So be open and transparent and share your worry beads, but then come with a plan, come with a solution.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think the board is there to help. And I think some people go in thinking that it's somewhat adversarial. It's not. They have a job to do, which is governing the company on behalf of the shareholders. So everybody in that room wants the same outcome. It wants the business to be successful. So, and ultimately, they are people, and they're grappling with a lot of very complex things, not just cyber. So I think there's a few things. Remember, they're there to help. Secondly, we're not special. You know, cyber people are not. I think sometimes in this industry we kind of think we are. Probably like every industry thinks it's special, but the board will see everything. Don't use acronyms. I mean, I'm just repeating what people have said. And I think just go in and they are people doing a job. If you've got that in your mind, everything else will sort of follow much easier. Asking for feedback is brilliant. Don't perceive questions, and I used to do this in my sort of earlier career. I think it's a very easy trap to fall into. Don't perceive questions as an implied criticism. If the board says, what are you doing about something, they're just asking, what are you doing about it? They're not asking, why haven't you done it? Or why haven't you done it yet? or when are you going to do it? They're asking, what are you doing? So just pause, think about the question and answer it. And I think the final piece is board papers, keep them simple and succinct and short. Less is absolutely more. You don't want the board to ask you to clarify what you've written down. If they're asking you to repeat yourself and clarify, then you've kind of missed the point. I like to get challenging and difficult questions when I'm in the boardroom that make me think, because I wouldn't sit here and pretend that I've got all the answers.
Superb, thanks. And I hope this is generating some good questions from the audience. So thanks for that, folks. So maybe, Paul, if I put the next question to you. So today we've heard a lot about resilience. Resilience is the top agenda for a lot of CISOs. But resilience is difficult, right? And communicating that to the board. I mean, how do you do that to the board, and how do you help them understand how it could be measured?
It's hard, because I think you have to start with what is resilience. I was going to look this up on Claude, actually, and get a nice AI-generated answer for everybody. But resilience, for me, it's not just about recovering from a situation. And I'm talking in broad terms, not just cyber. Being resilient to difficult events is not how you recover, it's how you operate through them. So I've framed it internally as how we would operate the business through a significantly difficult event. Now, aviation actually is remarkably good at dealing with disruption, because for a start, there's the weather and many other things. So it's not dissimilar to that. It's how do we operate through a potentially disruptive event, which includes how do we recover, but it also includes what do we need to have, what might we need to double up on, is it supplies, do we need redundant systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So once you start to unpack resilience, it becomes a very, very big topic. But I've sort of boiled it down to 5 prongs, most of which I think have been covered today. I'll try and remember them off the top of my head. The first one is get good at catching the bad guys quickly. We hear a lot of talk about AI-enabled attacks and being able to catch the bad guys at machine speed. You need to be able to do that. Look after your supply chain, because as someone else earlier on said, that's probably going to let the side down somewhere. Make sure you have offline backups of critical systems, and offline means actually really properly offline. So if you do get into a situation where you need to recover, you can do so. Limit the blast radius, we've heard that. That's an incredibly difficult thing to do, because attackers are very, very good at lateralizing. And the last one is always something of a provocation. Understand how you could run the business absent IT systems. Now, most of you are probably thinking, crikey, we couldn't do that. Yeah. But it's a deliberately provoking question, because that's what you need to be thinking about. Because if the worst does happen, then that's the situation you're going to find themselves in. So I think you could kind of sum all that up by saying, expect the best, but prepare for the worst.
Okay, thank you. Kate, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I very much echo that. And I used to run a resilience committee, and cyber was just one of the risks that we looked at. So when you're thinking about risk and putting it in the context of running an organisation, running without IT might just be one thing, but running without IT not because of a cyber incident, but say the electricity grid goes down, or there's a storm and something else happens. So try and make sure your thinking's quite broad when you think about resilience and what might impact you and how you operate. It's not just cyber that might be the trigger. It might be something else, and it's important to put it in that context so the board can understand your broad view.
I think that's such an important point. And again, sort of plays back to cyber not being special. Cyber can cause things, but those things can be caused in many different ways. Yeah. So don't think in a silo. I think that's
maybe if I can add some comments. So I think the tricky element is people, process, and technology. People and process is how do you have your test scenarios? So are you practicing enough your scenarios? Are you practicing your total exercise? Not only in security. Just remember, security is not IT. Security is the business. We are here for the business. What are your most valuable assets? Or what are your crown jewels that you're going to protect? Are those crown jewels serving the core business, critical business services that you give to your customers? So, and this is the part of people and technology. Prepare your people to be ready when happens. And don't go only security, go for the further. What happens is a physical security. What happens is this is another event, for example, an earthquake. Hopefully never in Ireland, but what's happened that? So plan all the scenarios and be ready with tests and playbook. What the board would like to see is the results. Are you testing? How often are you testing? Are you testing quick, small tests? Are you targeting the right audience? Do you have the people that you need to have on those? It's just, and this is the process and people. get ready your people. And technology, what about your immutable backups? What about what the hacker is seeing? Are you prepared for that? What do? Are you immutable backups have been tested? Are your immutable backups are in the right protection? Is in the same country? Is UDR working? Have you ensured your immutable backups are tested on a recurrent basis, that when you have to use them, they are there? So all those points you need to keep into consideration.
Thank you, Karim.
Yeah, look, I agree with everything that's been said, obviously. I'd add, though, one of the threads that sort of combines the four panelists here are we all lead security in digitally enabled businesses. So availability of digital technology is critical to the survival of our respective businesses. I'd say keep a focus on your customer. I think the customer is really, really important. So it can feel sometimes in cyber like we're trying to boil the ocean. We're trying to do everything to perfection, which is just not practical. So I think the mindset that says what's critical to your customer, it's checking your balance, it's booking your flight, it's paying for your car that you're about to borrow money, it's going out buying your shopping, booking the cinema tickets, whatever it is, they're the things that make the difference to the customer. And you can then draw a line between those critical services and the technologies that support them, and they're the technologies that are your crown jewels. They're the ones that you put extra protection around, and clearly that's where you need to put most of your focus.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So we've covered communication and resilience, but at the end of the day, we need the board to connect with the security strategy that we're setting out. So maybe Brian, do you want to kick us off on that?
Sure.
And, what's effective there?
Yeah, and look, I've been in this game for too long, well over 20 years, maybe 25 years, and gone are the days where we have to convince our organizations that cyber is important. So we all know that it's a hot topic. The cyber strategy, though, is really, really important, that it's not just a standalone document. It doesn't operate in a vacuum. Like, it's important that you have cyber strategy that's linked to business objectives, and of course that's a basic. But I think as security leaders, we probably need to take it a step further, and that's to really bring it to our organizations and say, like, a business objective, business strategy is secure foundations. You can't have a digitally enabled business without secure foundations. And for that reason, not just do you write a strategy that's linked to the business objectives, you've got to have a business strategy that recognizes that, and everything flows from that. Then digital resilience and cyber defense are key parts of that. So I think that's probably the way we need to go. And then from a business perspective, it's around making sure there's proper funding, making sure there's proper oversight, support from all parts of the organization. We're lucky in a way, and this might sound a bit funny or odd, but like, regulation is helping us here. Regulations like DORA set a really good best practice. What I would say, what used to be best practice has now become minimum regulatory expectations. And therefore, if you can embed that in your business objectives, I think that's half the battle. Yeah. Okay,
no, thank you. Karim, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, maybe to add that, just understand the business. It's the most important for me. Understand what are the business, what is your business strategy. You need to align to the business, connect with your risk management team to understand what are the worries, what do you have there, what are the top risks for the organization when you're enabling technology. It's all about technology now. We are living in the curve is exponentially growing. So how you can add value when you know the business, and then you are embedded security, privacy by design. In every strategic project, you need to understand how you embed the security there when you are creating your strategy.
Okay,
maybe, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Paul?
Yeah, I think, again, the problem being on the panel with people who are sort of experienced, we're saying broadly the same things, which is a good thing. But I think one of the things I would build on that, understand the business, and I would say really understand the business. And I think this is, I kind of coach my team, and as they become more senior, I say, right, you need to get out there and fundamentally understand the business. So in an airline, actually that's quite a cool thing to do and quite fun, because we can go and visit airports and understand how the operation works. I was previously a CISO at a retailer, so I went out and I actually spent some time on the tills. That's hard work in a store. Really, really fundamentally understand how the business operates. Security cannot exist in a silo. The second point, I think, is that most security strategies are broadly similar. We kind of know what the threats are, and they've been well covered today. The FBI Winter Shield thing, that sort of covers the basics and the things that we need to do. So I would say understand the business strategy. You get very close to whatever your strategy office is, chief strategy. Understand where the business is going, because I see my job as not only protecting the business as it is now, but enabling it to deliver on the strategy. So if there's a security threat that will produce a greater risk in the future because of something we're doing strategically, then I need to get across that now, not in 2 years' time when suddenly the risk goes off the scale. So as CISO, I sort of often think of myself quite often as the devil's advocate in the room, because when I'm with my team, I'm representing the business, and when I'm with the business, I'm representing security. So you need to understand both sides of this coin.
Okay, and Kate?
Yeah, I think that's kind of very much true, that you need to be really embedded and understand what the operational objectives are of your business. But I think just going back round the sort of effective communication piece of that is that boards quite often like to see benchmarking, and they like to see standards and frameworks. And I think as you develop your strategic planning and thinking around what you need to address in your cybersecurity program, you should also be thinking about how you can demonstrate that back to that community that you're delivering value. And that value, you might need to do a Gartner benchmarking, or you might get PwC in to do a NIST benchmark, whatever it might be. Boards take comfort from the fact that whatever you're planning to do and invest in is backed by a very broad view of what good practice looks like. So make sure you build that into any of your communications that you put together around that.
Okay, thank you. So before we open up for questions, then just a quick fire round for you guys. So just maybe to start off with you, Kate, just a bit of advice that you'd give to people in the room based on the conversation today.
I'd say don't get too overwhelmed with the technical details of what you're doing. I know lots of people in cyber like to be really technical, but make sure you can translate it into business language if you want support. Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, I was going to, again, say something similar. Learn the art of simplifying something, and realise that actually it's a difficult thing to do, and the technical detail doesn't add anything from the board's point of view. I'm saying the same thing a different way, but I think if there's one thing, that's probably the single most important thing I've learned over the last 10 years or so.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I'd say a couple of things. So cyber is a team sport. So while I'm the CISO and I feel a weight of accountability, as we all do as security leaders, towards protecting our organizations, we need to spread that responsibility around the organization. Every part of the enterprise has a role to play, be it reporting suspicious emails, be it making sure there's funding in place. Whatever part of the business you are in, you have a role to play. And the other thing I'd say is, as security leaders, we've all chosen careers in cybersecurity because we're interested in it, and this is what we do. So I would say embrace it, enjoy it, and look after yourselves. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Karim?
I will add your team. The most important is your team. Everything that you achieve, you have the accountability or responsibility, but focus in your team. Focus to create a new generation of leaders where they can lead, when you give them the confidence, when you give them the exposure, when you don't get the prizes for you. It's your team. You are achieving only because you have a fantastic team. If you fail, your team fails too. We are all push the boat in the same direction. And the last part, totally different, is remember your supply chain. 4-party, 5th-party, 6th-party. That could be the weakest link or your security. Analyze your trend of your incident and see where were they. It was your supply chain. It was your house. What happened there?
Thank you. So before I hand over to Jonathan, I just want a huge thank you to the panel before we open up for questions. Appreciate, Kate, Paul, you've traveled in from the UK. Really appreciate your commitment to it. Brian, Karim, you've braved Dublin traffic to get here, so thank you very much, guys. But let's open up for questions.
Thank you, Gavan. You asked for questions, and they have given us questions. How do you balance the risk of lacking or very new security controls for AI with the business need to innovate? So there's a big conflict now. We need to use this.
Paul, why don't you jump in on that?
Yeah, but to be honest, look, I've been in cyber for 32 years, and one of the things I've been saying to sort of senior folk in our business is, look, the world is going to end about every 5 years in cyber, and it hasn't so far. So I think, yes, there is a need to move quicker. There will be a need to put more controls in to deal with AI. But don't forget the basics. This has been said many, many times today. Most incidents happen because of an unpatched server or an old server or something like that. So don't get caught up in all the excitement around this. Just keep focused on the stuff that really, really matters.
Your grandmother would have said stick to the knitting, which is probably not a bad analogy there. Large companies more or less understand the importance of cybersecurity. How do we get smaller organizations, non-profits with little budget to understand the risks?
Okay. Kate, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, in my role on the social housing board, I mean, we have a very small budget to spend on information technology. And a lot of what we do there is we sort of beg, steal and borrow best practice from others, so we don't try and make it up ourselves.
We call that goodwill, I think.
Yeah.
We appeal to goodwill.
We appeal very much to goodwill. And we use some blunt instruments as well, like just switching access off to stuff so that the front door's not open, it's always locked. Yeah.
Just you have to go the extra mile because of the nature of the organisation that it is. PTSB has been in the news recently. It has. With the sale of the business to BAWAG. Does an event like that lead to increased cyber criminal interest and attack? Now, I'm a PTSB member, so therefore I know that you guys are on top of all of it and you've caught all the stuff, and thankfully it's never been something that's impacted me. But has being up there at the top of the agenda kind of drawn attention to you guys?
I think it's fair to say, look, any organisation that's in the media is likely to get more attention from cyber criminals, because once you're in the news, it does invite that extra attention. So it's something we do anticipate, but it's back to the basic point around employee awareness, security, hygiene. The basics are really, really important when things like this happen. So we're constantly driving awareness within the business, as you'd expect. Don't click on suspicious emails, report them to my team for follow-up. So yes and no, I'd say. It's something we anticipate, but obviously our security awareness program is really important in that regard.
Yeah, very good. And one more, Karim, I wouldn't leave you hanging. There's one question that I'll put from the floor to you. In your early to mid-career, how did you influence above you to affect policy and strategy to improve security within business areas? So how did you manage to do that when you were at a lower level to where you are now?
Yeah, so I was an auditor for 15 years of my career. So I think it's about risk. I came from a very strong foundation of risk. For me, it was important to understand what was really there. When every issue that I found, I wanted to understand what is the issue, what is the root cause analysis. And then I wanted to share, okay, that's my view, how team collaboration put people in my side in the way that we are all together, we collaborate, and you get brilliant ideas put in there. And then you get you get a strategy, you get an idea how you can solve those problems together. For me, fundamentally is a team. Wherever you are, we are all leaders. It's not the title that makes you, it's the mindset and the attitude.
Ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible group of businesses, a diverse group, but very good advice coming from all of them. Can we have a huge round of applause, please, for Kate Jones, Paul Midian, Brian Cooke, Karim Hernandez, wonderfully chaired by Gavan Egan. We'll leave it that way, guys. Thank you.
Well done, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.